It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the day off again today. By the way, he's out doing marketing for the show, just so you know. So it's all positive. It's not like he's being lazy or sick or just sick of me. He's actually very, very productive, helping the show to continue with the great success that we have had. I think we're just a month and a half away from celebrating our 20th year together. Yeah. How can we stand each other? We do have fun, though. But he will be back for the Sunday night, Monday morning show, and we'll continue. We'll continue with the fun that we always have. Wow, what a day it was yesterday! Before we get to the meat and potatoes portion of the show, let's start with dessert. All right, I have no problem with that. If you know, I live alone, so if I want to start with dessert first for a dinner, that's okay. If I had kids, apparently you're not allowed to do that. I've always looked at it and said, it's food as long as you eat all of it. I'm sure RFK Jr. would not be happy with me advocating the fact that having dessert first is a good thing. But I saw just a couple of headlines as I was getting ready to do the show here, just in the last 45 minutes, and it's like these are just too good. Here's this headline. All right, here we go. Riley Gaines challenges ex-ESPN host to a race after he says she was the worst swimmer, or she was a worse swimmer than she is a MAGA stooge. Who do you think said that? Kieth Oberman. So Riley Gaines and Kieth Oberman in a swim meet. Wow. Let's hope that happens. And this is from Fox News. Riley Gaines clapped back at former ESPN and MSNBC host Kieth Oberman with an official challenge for charity on Wednesday after he said Gaines was somehow a worse swimmer than she is a MAGA stooge. So there you go. Riley Gaines finished 85th in the Olympic trials. She finished tied for 5th in the only race including a transgendered athlete. If there had been none, she might have finished a tie for 4th or had a 5th place to herself. As we know, it doesn't matter whether Riley Gaines would be a championship swimmer or not. That's not the point. Oberman's just a weird dude, though. Forget about him being liberal. Well, you know, he's been around for a while. Especially in the media, is being liberal, I mean, bat soup crazy liberal and being weird, apparently that goes together. You know, you look at somebody like a Kieth Oberman. Are they just weird in some ways? I mean, look, everybody has their unique parts of their personality, and we could say that all of us are weird in some way, but they're almost weird on steroids. But that was the one headline that I saw. Man, I hope that happens. And then this headline. Anthony Weiner discusses sexting scandal while attempting political comeback and says, women are crazy about me. Yikes. Anthony Weiner, the disgraced ex-congressman seeking to return to politics as a member of New York City Council, quipped during an interview that women are crazy about me, despite going to prison and being required to register as a sex offender. You can't make this up. Oh, for sure, for sure. My God, they're crazy about me. Women are crazy about me. That's a quote. When asked if the power politicians wield makes them more attractive to the opposite sex. Let's go through that again. Remember, this is from Anthony Weiner. Oh, for sure, my God. They're crazy about me. Women are crazy about me. Anthony Weiner. That's just weird. All right, one thing I wanted to bring up because we haven't made note of it yet, but both Eric and I have gotten some a great response from our listeners about their individual challenges that they have with family members that have dementia, or in some cases have severe cognitive problems that they're investigating whether it's dementia or not. And we started talking about our personal experiences with the whole Biden thing. And it was because once you recognize it in your family, once you see it, you know it. You know it. You see it. And that's why, again, we have some great stuff on Tapper again. And just on the left and Democrats in general. I did see a headline today. Now the Democrats can admit that Biden was a horrible president. I was like, oh. And my first thought was, well, he might not have been a horrible president. It might have been the unelected people around him that were horrible presidents because he didn't know what was going on. But I was thinking about this today after I talked to Dad, and it was amazing. Because about a week ago, I had a great conversation with him for probably 45 minutes. And then, he was sleeping a lot this week because I call every day to talk to him. And then one of the days I went to talk to him and he just, it was like I wasn't even there. And then today I called and my sister said, yeah, sure, you can talk to him. And he was great. I mean, we talked he was asking me questions. He was prying into different topics. I'd bring up a topic, and he'd go, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? Some business stuff that I'm involved in. He got involved in that. What about this? What about this? Do you think you should do this? And I'm like, my God, he's understanding every single thing. And that's the weird thing. That's the up and down that you go through. And just want to say we really appreciate all the comments that we have had of other people's personal experiences. We haven't talked about it much on the air, but it's really appreciated because we've said it. We don't bring it up because we believe that, we're some type of victims and this is something that nobody else has experienced. And so you have to hear the trials and tribulations we're going through in our families. It's not why we do it. We did it initially as a point with Biden, as we talked about the fact that once you see it, you recognize it. And then naturally you get into the stories on it. And our hope was that people felt free to just write to us because it can get lonely. It can get lonely. It's not for me, but it can get lonely if you're dealing with that. And, for example, it's your significant other. If it's your spouse, and you're losing that person. And I know yesterday for me when talking to my dad, it was like, oh, my God, I got him for another. It was about it was a half hour to 45 minutes this time. And then like that, boom, he wanted the conversation ended and moved on to something else. And really it was, I wasn't there anymore. And that those are the kind of things. But to get, and I've gotten some, response from listeners saying that's the one thing that you really have to handle. I mean, and that's the toughest thing to handle because you're so grateful when you all of a sudden you get that person back for a while and you're like, wow, okay, they're still in there. And so thank you so much. We really appreciate it and let you know that we're getting them, we're reading them. We'll respond, to them and acknowledge that we've gotten them from you. And we just want to say we really appreciate it. And we feel great that you feel like you can reach out to us when we tell you a personal story and relate to us your personal story dealing with that, because it is one tough thing. when you deal with a family member, a spouse, whatever, a best friend, and you've dealt with them, your entire life, and you build up this relationship, and it's a deep bond, and so much of that bond is an intellectual bond, and it slowly starts going away, and you recognize it, and all of a sudden one day it's gone, but then a couple days later it's back. It can be an emotional ride. It can be an emotional nightmare. And so thank you so much, and the fact that so many of our listeners felt that they could write to us on their personal experiences is really great. We really, it makes us feel good that you feel that you can write to us on those things. It really does. All right, coming up. Wow, the entire tariff thing. Did you see? It's not a surprise. I mean, conservatives make a big deal out of it, but when you actually think about it, it's not a surprise. The downfall in the ratings of CNN. I guess Jake Tapper's, even with all this book, well, with all the hype of the book and everything else, his ratings have crashed. Well, duh. It's not Republican conservatives. You may listen to the audio cuts that we play on CNN, for example, and on MSNBC, but most of the CNN audio cuts we play is when you have Scott Jennings or one of the other, Republican people arguing back and forth. And, it may be a minute or two, but you don't have conservatives tuning in for that. And with the decrease in the ratings, drastically, for Jake Tapper this month, and then MSNBC also hit very hard after they redid, their lineup, is not surprising at all, because there's a huge split right now in the Democratic Party. And when you talk about Jake Tapper, oh my gosh, liberals are so angry at Jake Tapper. It's not surprising at all. So we'll get into some of the specifics of that. Plus, yesterday, the response of the administration to the Court on International Trade and then the Appeals Court lifting the permanent injunction until they get a chance to look at it. It'll be interesting to see what happens, how quick they rule on it, and then how quick it makes it to the Supreme Court, whether it's a month or whatever. The first thing I'd seen yesterday was when it was announced, and I looked at the stock market, and the stock market went up 500 points, and I went, really? And then it stayed at 500, and it was almost as if, okay, people are starting to think about it. When I woke up, and I woke up about 8:30, right before it opened, and I looked at the stock futures, and they were even. And I went, okay, that's more like it, because I actually think it brought more uncertainty. Right now, businesses have no idea what's going to happen. And that's not a good thing when that happens to a business. So how all this is going to come out in the wash, we will see. But we'll comment on it. We'll comment on the response. Because really right now, what I saw yesterday, this was an argument between Republicans against Republicans and conservatives against more of the populist in the Republican Party, and we'll get to the specifics of that and more. Oh, got a great show ahead. Got to get through all the audio cuts, too. Oh, man, there's so much to do today, but we will do our best here. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. When it comes to truck maintenance, sometimes it's the little things that can cause the most trouble, like cabin air filters. When properly serviced, cabin air filters provide a barrier between pollutants and harmful particles outside and your HVAC system. If you don't pay attention to them, however, this small part can turn into big trouble in no time. Breathe easy when you know how often to get your filters replaced. Long-haul drivers should replace their cabin air filters every 50,000 miles, or according to the manufacturer's recommendations. If you operate in dusty environments, consider servicing your cabin air filters more often.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but I'm here. Thanks so much for being here this morning. You know, it was interesting. It was really an intense show yesterday because when I woke up to come in is when I saw the court on international trade make their decision on the Trump tariffs and the law that they used to justify the tariffs. And we went through it point by point, as we will again today. Now, I can do it in a much accelerated manner because now it's all, we can put it in a nice little box as to what the court says, as opposed to what the administration said yesterday or surrogates. And I will say this, except for Scott Besant, nobody, and it really wasn't a legal point. I didn't see one legal point come from the administration yesterday. Not one. I heard things like activist judges can't do this. Only Congress can tell the president what to do. And the president, when I read his Truth Social post, going after the Federalist Society, and the Federalist Society is the legal society out there that has given suggestions to Republican presidents about, how to put in constructionist judges, which are judges that they hope will interpret the Constitution and not create new law, that won't sit there and say, well, we don't, the whole concept of the Constitution is a living, breathing document, which is really? That, by the way, that was one of the dumbest things ever used by the left. It isn't. It's a law. It's not a living, breathing document. And if you want to say, well, the living, breathing document means it can change, yeah, well, there's a way to do that, and it's not through judicial activism. But was it judicial activism? It's tough to figure out if the other side, and I'm talking about the administration, doesn't make one legal point. And we went through it, and we did this whether it was the courts ruling for or against Biden, and we've done it when it's the courts ruling for or against Trump. We tell you why. We just don't say, they're activist judges, and this is wrong, and this can't happen, and how dare... That doesn't get you anywhere because that's got nothing to do with the law. And as we said yesterday, what this court seems to be saying, and this is why I wanted response to this from the administration legal team, and you didn't get it, it seems like what they're saying is, under the law he tried to use, the IEEPA, tariffs are not something that Congress has included in that law. If he would have used the law from 1962, because those are the tariffs that they allowed to stay, the steel tariffs, the aluminum tariffs, the auto tariffs, the automobile parts tariffs, they allowed them to stay. It's not as if this court came in and said, Trump putting any tariffs on is wrong. They said when he uses this law, it's wrong. And it seemed to be saying when they use this law, it's right. And then you saw the administration say, well, we still have other paths to do it. We can get there in a different way, which meant the administration even knew we can use this law, but it's slower. You have to go on an individual case-by-case basis. What the court seems to be saying is you just can't do tariffs across the board on everybody using this particular law. You might be able to do it on everybody, but you have to go point by point. And the Section 130 or 232 that we talked about from the 1962 law is what you used, and that's why the court allowed the tariffs on steel, the tariffs on aluminum, the tariffs on automobiles, automobile parts, because they used that law. We'll get to more coming up.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And He is Eric Harley. He has the morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I am here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose, anytime you want. That's right. After our show is over, it becomes our podcast. Yeah. And thank you for everyone listening in the future. You know, one of the things is when you have a legal decision come down, it's much easier because sometimes, you know, just going through the minutia of it can get complicated, and, you know, people can get lost because the legal stuff at times, as I was telling you last night when I woke up and I was trying to read the entire decision from that U.S. trade court while I was on the air and scanning it and trying to figure out what was going on, what point they were trying to make. And we've done this for every legal case, irrespective of whether the case is a win for Republicans, a loss for Republicans, a win for Democrats, or a loss for Democrats. We've always gone through and said, okay, what's the legal point that's being made? And that's the one thing here. I don't know still how this is going to come out in the wash because I don't know the legal arguments from the administration yet. I got a lot of rhetoric, but I didn't see any specific legal points made where I could say, okay, that's a better point that I didn't think of. What I got was activist judges trying to compare the U.S. Trade Court to the district court judges that clearly went out of their bounds with nationwide injunctions. For example, there was didn't get a lot of news yesterday, but there was a small business owner that went to a district judge in D.C. and said, you know, the Trump using the tariffs under the law, the IEEPA law, was unconstitutional. The district judge agreed with him, but did not put through a nationwide lawsuit, or excuse me, a nationwide injunction at all. He just said, I believe Trump is wrong. Then it works its way up through the system. For if Republicans are trying to make the case that the federal court on international trade can't make a decision on international trade, they need to explain to me their legal point behind that. And they haven't. I saw the Trump surrogate, as I call him, the Trump surrogate. I call a lot of the people Trump surrogates that support the president in most everything that he does. Charlie Kirk was one of them, and I brought this up yesterday, that Charlie Kirk said, absolutely, he can put the tariffs on. This is a travesty, whatever, because Section 232, well, he didn't use Section 232. He used another law. That was the point. Now, he was corrected if under that law he could put in tariffs, but it's a different procedure. It's a longer procedure. It has to go through the Commerce Department, and there has to be an investigation as to whether it needs to be done or not. What the court is saying is, from what I can see, they're saying, now, there was even some from what the court said that I don't understand, that I need more of an explanation on, because they left the tariffs in for steel and aluminum and for auto parts and automobiles, because what the point they were trying to make is he followed the proper procedure there. You can do it under that law, which is the 1962 Trade Act, section, I think it's 232. I'm doing this from memory. What was talked about. But they didn't. They wanted to do it. Trump was testing it. And we've said this. Trump is testing a bunch of things to see, what the Supreme Court will say. And this is going to get up to the Supreme Court also. But when the court came out and said that, that this is basically the wrong law to do it because it doesn't say the president can use tariffs in that law, I did see conservative and constructionist legal minds yesterday make the same thing we did. Well, that's what they did with Biden with the EPA laws. They told the executive branch, just because Congress has put the EPA in, unless Congress says you can regulate CO2, carbon dioxide, you can't do that. And so they took that ability from the Biden administration, saying Congress has to specifically state it in the law. And Republicans all agreed with that across the board. How this is different is what I would like to see from the legal minds of the president. How are you going to debate this? I saw Levitt yesterday. She said, we're going to win this. She didn't say how. She didn't go through the legal points of it. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more than rhetoric. Can you win this thing, and can you accelerate it more? Now, the one point, what was it, the one point that I didn't understand from the court? It just went out of my mind. I'll figure out what it is. But I want to go to the really the only point that was made, and it's really not a legal point. It's something I guess the courts could consider, but it's really not a legal point. It was Secretary Scott Bessent yesterday on with Brett Baer, and here's what he said. Here we go.
Well, Brett, it seems highly inappropriate for the judiciary to wade in here when the Senate had the opportunity to override the president and didn't. So, in terms of separation of powers, the Senate has chosen not to exercise their powers, and the president absolutely has the right to set the trade agenda for the U.S.
Okay. And the president does, but not under that law. And that's what Bessent doesn't say. And so if Congress passes a law, and remember this law was passed in 1977, that doesn't include anything, and the Senate, this would be my question, the Senate ignores that, does that mean the court should ignore it? If Congress was the one that originally wrote the law that didn't include tariffs, just like Congress with the EPA never included CO2 as a pollutant, yet the Biden administration said it was, and the Supreme Court slapped them down and said, you can't do that because Congress didn't specify it. What's the argument from the administration on that? And that's what we didn't get. And I know it gets a little bit complicated, and I know it's much easier on social media just to scream and yell activist judges. You sit there and say, but they've supported Democrat causes, and I know that. But there was another 8-0 decision yesterday, which sort of mirrored the whole not it's not the exact same case, but mirrored when it came to was it mining in Utah? I think it was 8-0 in the Supreme Court, and so you had even the Democrat judges agree that okay, you went too far in trying to do this. And it wasn't something against the Trump administration, it was against the Biden administration. And so that's the thing. The administration yesterday did not make the legal argument where I can make a full determination of how this might come up in the Supreme Court because I don't know. They didn't give. Somebody might have. I didn't see it. And I searched big time yesterday because that's all I care about. What is the legalities behind it? The rhetoric, I throw out the window. It's like Eric and I. Don't sit there and we don't care every single day when Trump says something. There isn't none of these ups. I can't believe he said it. It's like we know who he is. All we care about is the substance of the matter. What is the substance behind it? And so Bessent said that, and he's right. Under the Trade Act of 62, he has the ability to do that. Everybody in the administration seemed to agree with that yesterday, but nobody said, yeah, but that wasn't the law he used. He used a different law. And could he get to the same point? Yes, but it would take longer. And so for Bessent, the argument, the legal argument would be, you're trying to say since the Senate had the opportunity to override the president and didn't, but the law itself doesn't give the president the ability to do it since the Senate ignored that law, because that's what the other court is saying, then the courts should ignore the actual text of that law? Is that judicial activism at that point? And I haven't gotten anything from the administration on that to make a decision of, how would the Supreme Court rule on this? How will the appeals court rule on this? Because I don't know. I don't know what the legal argument's going to be from the administration yet, because so far I haven't heard one. So it's going to be interesting. The thing I don't like about it is with the back and forth, it's even made the uncertainty more for businesses out there and for small businesses out there. You could see it in the stock market yesterday, and that doesn't help the economy. That's my main concern right now, is especially small business that will hurt more because of the indecision. And even large businesses now, it's like, where do they go? What do we do when it comes to investment? How do we do it? We have no idea where the courts are going to go. We don't know where the Trump administration is going to go. Confusion is something that always hurts business, because when there's confusion, you don't know. Eric and I said this back in 2008, 2009. They should have let everything crash, bailed out who you could bail out. But when they sat there and said that all the banks back in 2008, 2009 had to take federal dollars because, in essence, they're trying to hide the banks that have the problem, well, that caused more confusion over that period of time in the mortgage crisis. Don't do that. Let the banks that have the problem, if they fail, other banks will buy them. But don't sit there and make it a guessing game. Don't sit there because then okay, that's the problem. And we said, don't bail out everybody and make it seem like the entire system is bad. Let the banks that are there fail. Let somebody come in, scoop them up, buy them. And you might have had a worse recession, but you would have recovered faster because at that point, and knowledge in economics, knowledge in business is what everybody wants. You want that clarity. And right now there's no clarity as to where the Trump administration or the courts are going to go on this. So there you go. And I'm trying to think of what was the one point that there was the one point that I made that the court confused me on, that the court confused me on yesterday, where I just said, well, that doesn't seem to make any sense. I'll figure out what that was, and we'll get to it here in a little bit. I'm telling you, yesterday was like doing calculus. Even today was like doing calculus, going through the bill, and then trying to find out what the legal arguments are of the administration, and I couldn't find the legal arguments. I could find moral arguments. I couldn't find legal arguments. And the moral arguments really don't matter unless you're a liberal. All right, 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. He'll return for Sunday night, Monday morning's show. I figured out what it was. This is where the trade court, again, has to clarify it to me, because this didn't make any sense. They made the case, and we had talked about this yesterday. They said even if in the IEEPA law that Trump used, even if Congress had allowed him to use tariffs, this would still be unconstitutional. They didn't explain that to me, because they said, because it seemed like they were saying that even if Congress passed the law saying he could use tariffs, that it would still be unconstitutional. I didn't know if they meant this isn't a national emergency, or he couldn't still use them in a broad fashion, because they clearly stated by allowing the steel and aluminum tariffs and the automobile tariffs and the automobile parts tariffs to continue, that there is a path where Congress can pass a law where Trump, through the Commerce Department investigation, can put tariffs on other countries. So I don't know why. That's still unclear to me. So I would still need to know that to make an analysis of how this might come out in the Supreme Court. But as Eric and I said before, the one case that's made is this isn't a national emergency, because it's been going on for 51 years. And so you can look at this, a trade deficit. And in the economic argument, is a trade deficit bad? Is a capital deficit bad and a good surplus bad? Well, it would be if you saw a crash of the U.S. dollar. which you haven't seen because of it. Because why? Because when it comes to services and investment in the country, those dollars are being put in. Trump initially said he was against the investment, that money coming back because foreigners are investing, yet two of his biggest successes over the last couple of weeks have gotten foreign investment into steel and Hyundai here in the United States. So what's the message? Does he even believe it's an emergency? Those are some of the things the court looks at, because on tariffs, in our humble opinion, he's been all over the place.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but he returns for Monday morning's show. Just looking at this here, and I know it was all over social media. MSNBC's new primetime lineup, which debuted on May 5th, failed to connect with viewers in its first 3 weeks as the network saw its audience decline to near record lows, especially in the key 25 to 54 age demographic. This is from Mediaite, which is more of a liberal website. Overall, for May, MSNBC dropped 41% in the primetime demo and 34% in the total day demo compared to May of 2024. In total viewers, the network was down 33% across total day and 24% in primetime. MSNBC's total day demo viewership sank to 49,000 average viewers. Oh, my gosh. Understand, there are, I think we're closing in on 340 million people in the United States. MSNBC's total day demo viewership sank to a $49,000 average viewers and 73,000 in primetime. Its second worst showing for a month behind January of 2025. Fox News was the only one of the big three networks to see year-over-year gains for May, up 21% in total viewers and 22% in total day demo viewers compared to 2024. In primetime, Fox gained 23% in total viewers and was up 32% in the 25 to 54 demo. CNN was down 24% in total day viewers and 27% in daytime demos, while in primetime, the network dropped 18% in total viewers and 21% in the demo. CNN's primetime average came in at only 426,000 total viewers compared to Fox News, 2.5 million viewers, and MSNBC's average of 877,000 viewers. Understand, though, I mean, they talk about this a lot, but even if you see, Fox News average of 2.5 million people, remember, people are getting their news from the internet. That's where they're getting it from. They're not even getting it from, even Fox News. They're not. You may be, others may, but the audience is very small as compared to the total number of people in the United States. The point is people are still getting their news, and more will from the internet. I like this. So MSNBC's new lineup saw the 7 p.m. launch of the weeknight and Jen Psaki replacing Alex Wagner Tuesday through Friday at 9 p.m. Replacing Alex Wagner Tuesday through Friday at 9 p.m., while Rachel Maddow returned to hosting only on Mondays at 9 p.m. Maddow returned to MSNBC 5 nights a week to cover the first 100 days of the Trump second administration. Psaki's numbers so far also registered a dip for her hours. Psaki showed averages of 973,000 total viewers since launch, which is 46% less than the 1.82 million average viewers that have watched MSNBC at 9 p.m. so far this year to see Rachel Maddow. Yeah, look, that's no surprise. Maddow was the most popular person on there. We still like the court ruling when she was sued, and the Obama judge said nobody expects Rachel Maddow to tell the truth. That was the best ever. She can't defame if nobody expects you to tell the truth. If everybody expects you to defame, well then, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody is there, if everybody expects you to defame and not tell the truth, then you can't be sued. But the problem is with Jen Psaki, look, the Democratic Party is as radical as it can possibly get. She's viewed as the establishment. She's viewed as a Biden surrogate. They all want to move away from him now. I was reading the other day, there's a ton of different articles out there about Obama. We said this a long time ago. We said this into a second term. It's like, they're just not into you as much anymore. And now it's like, I read an article yesterday. I got to find where it was. Was it National Review? I can't remember. Someone wrote an article saying, all right, nobody cares about Obama anymore. Well, then nobody should care about what Obama has stood for or the legislation that he has promoted. Like, well, that's a good point. But Psaki is viewed as establishment Democrat right now. Maddow is not. Psaki's numbers also down 20% from Alex Wagner's average during the same period in 2024. The one thing I'd have to say about this is what, who was it? I can't think of her name, the well-known writer. Maureen Dowd said this. This goes back, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, where she said all of her friends that are liberal, when things get bad, they just turn off the news completely. They don't watch anything. They just turn it off. And that might be happening right now because what is the good news for the Democratic Party right now? Anybody tell me what the good news is? There isn't any good news. And this whole Biden thing isn't going away. It's not going to go away because the average person understands that this is a soap opera-like miniseries scandal. This isn't something that's complicated. You don't have to go through, even as we had to with the trade court, the minutia of all the legalese, which can get quite complicated. And it's like, okay, how do you simplify it? How do you simplify it? This isn't hard to do. This is a president. The last president did not have the cognitive abilities to lead the country, and unelected aides were making decisions for him. And the allegation is coming from liberals who wrote a book. This is soap opera stuff. These people go, whoa, wow. Very simple to understand. Miniseries kind of, things. I think of, I think of All the President's Men with Robert Redford. If you've never watched it, I remember God, this is how warped we were back then. I remember going to the drive-in. I saw All the President's Men at a drive-in. And I watch it now and I think to myself, wow. Because they went through the minutia of everything, and I thought to myself, I actually watched the entire thing. Wow, we had attention spans back then. Because if it comes on now, I'll sit there and go, I've already seen it, but I'm always in awe of how did you stick with it this long? How do you go through, from the beginning of the investigation? If that was able to get an audience way back then, Then again, we did have attention spans. This thing is way bigger. We said it a few weeks ago. Jake Tapper said it. This is, probably bigger than Watergate. Of course it's bigger than Watergate. It's about a shadow government. Watergate was about not just the break into Democratic headquarters, but it was the cover-up by Nixon. It was a cover-up. It was a cover-up of a burglary in order to get information about what the other side was doing. Not good. Tore the country apart. But nothing compared to a shadow government, unelected representatives, a president that is incapacitated mentally to the point where he can't make decisions, and unelected aides and family members are propping him up to the point where, as soon as it got to the point where people started saying things like, this is weekend at Biden's, at that point, it hit popular culture. And now, with the Jake Tapper book, Democrats are just running away. They don't want to even hear any of this. There is no argument against it. There are no debate points. You can't come out and say, well, it's somehow we can blame Trump. How do we blame Trump for unelected aides of Joe Biden and or family members running the country? Who made the decisions? The executive orders? Who did it? Because of the auto pen. Who did it? Who actually was running the country? That actually gets people's attention. And that's the problem when you look at May. It's so dominated with that story that I can see liberals going, we want nothing to do with this. We've got to move away from this. I don't want to hear this anymore. I don't want to hear this anymore. Because it's the worst presidential scandal in American history right now. And it was conservatives brought it to light. They were ignored. They were called a right-wing, the right-wing conspiracy theory and everything else. And everything the left was telling you, everything the media was telling you was an absolute lie. And they knew it. And now you see there's almost a consensus across the board. Well, not across the board, not from the liberal media, but from conservatives, independents, whatever, that, Jake Tapper's book is about CYA for the media, that we were fooled. Now, Jake Tapper's been attacked for that. He's had to do, semi-mea culpas over it, but we all know it's like, if you're trying to say this slipped by you and you should have done it, but you weren't sure, well, then you have no observational skills. Get out of the business now. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
In Trident Radio, I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. He returns with me on Sunday night, Monday morning. We'll both be here. Never got to the Jake Tapper numbers out there. CNN host Jake Tapper had the lowest rated month in nearly 10 years. Wow. All the publicity for the book and everything else, his ratings crashed. This from Fox News. Tapper and Axios reporter Alex Thompson's new book, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again, was released in May to much fanfare. The book helped set the recent news cycle with new accusations of the Biden White House hiding the truth about the former president's fitness for office. To promote the book, Tapper has embarked on a wide-ranging book tour that landed him on a variety of podcasts, talk shows, and cable news. The book has also been promoted relentlessly across CNN, but the spotlight on Tapper has failed to give him a boost in viewership. The lead with Jake Tapper averaged 525,000 total viewers from April 28th to May 25th, shedding 25% of CNN's audience in its time slot from the same period last year. MSNBC also beat Tapper among total viewers. Wow. So there you go. Didn't help him at all. Well, they're furious at him. Come on. Who watches CNN? Conservatives don't watch CNN. They may pay attention. I know conservatives pay attention to the Scott Jennings stuff that appears on social media, and sure, Michael Singleton also, and also the other guy. I can't think of his name here. Oh, I just got mind blank. Kevin O'Leary, who's on there quite frequently. I like the back and forth that goes on there. It's actually pretty good stuff when that happens, but you have to wade through a lot of crap before you get to that. And so people say, well, I'll just find the audio cuts. Go to Scott Jennings' X page, and there it is right there. I can find it there, or any of the other millions of people that post that. And the same thing with Jake Tapper. We've got some Jake Tapper audio coming up, and people want to hear that, but do they want to watch the entire show? No. But yes, so Tapper, the lowest ratings since 2015. And think about this. Probably the biggest, it is. It's the biggest presidential scandal in American presidential history. You're the guy that broke it, and your numbers crash in the month that you break the book, and you're talking about the book. Remember, we played the collage of him talking about, because Jon Stewart did it. He played it. It's like, coming up, and we'll have, well, wait a minute. If you have the news now, tell us what it is now. Isn't the news now? Why do you keep promoting the book as we're going to tell you it when the book comes out? We'll give you excerpts when the book comes out. No, you're a news person. If there's news, tell us what it is now. But think about it. One of the biggest scandal in presidential history, I look at it as. And if you don't look at it that way, it's one of the biggest presidential scandals in American history. A shadow government, an incapacitated president that does not have the cognitive abilities to make any decisions, and it just didn't go on for a week. It went on for years. You break the book. You promote. This is what's coming up in May. The book, the book, the book, the book. The cover-up, the cover-up. And your ratings crash. Whoa. But there's going to be some fun coming up. Senate Judiciary Committee announced, I think it was yesterday afternoon, we'll have actually some audio on that it will hold a hearing on June 18th on Biden's decline. Here we go. And you can't sit there and say Republicans won't drop this because it's Democrats that brought this to the forefront. It's the legacy media, as they call themselves. We call it the far left media, and those that support the far left, they're the ones that brought it up. And who are the sources? Nobody's denying I haven't heard anybody come out and say everything that Jake Tapper is saying is false. All the people that were used as sources, from what we know, are Democrats who were loyal Democrats and served in the Biden administration. Going to be fun.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. He has the morning off. I don't. I am here with you today. Sorry, I was trying to get all my audio cuts all set up. I was a little late getting back from that break. Thank you so much for extending that music for a couple of seconds. But I've got a show to do. But the fireworks are going to start. They're all going to start. June 18th, there's going to be a Senate Judiciary hearing on the Biden decline. Senator John Cornyn talked yesterday on Fox News with Will Cain about it.
Well, we need to get past the failures of the media, which were legend, as you pointed out, or the political issue of were you for Biden or against Biden. This is about a constitutional crisis where we basically have an incompetent, mentally incompetent president who's not in charge. So the question is, who is in charge? Whose finger is on the nuclear button or has the nuclear codes? Who can declare war? How do we defend the nation when we have basically an absent president? And those are constitutional issues we need to address and correct.
Senator Cornyn, you're not one known for inflammatory language, respectfully. And so when I hear you say today we have a constitutional crisis and whose finger was on the nuclear button, literally, who was responsible for war and peace, it's the right exact question to be asking about what happened in this country. Now, the names, to your point out, need to be investigated. Is it chief of staff? Is it the first lady? Is it the first son? But if we find those names, the question then becomes what real accountability can be. Now, we looked this up. Kerry Urban, who's a Fox News legal analyst, we asked what crimes potentially could have been committed. And we're going to share this with the viewers. Here are some crimes on the screen I want you to take a look at that, if these things were done, are potentialities. Forgery, that has to do with the auto pin. Impersonation of a federal officer. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. I looked up some of these crimes today, Senator. Now, the hard thing is there's no jurisprudence and precedent behind a lot of these things. Right. But by the letter of the law, these people would be guilty of these crimes.
Well, that's why we've asked Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, to look into this to see what federal laws have been violated. And the ones you mentioned make sense to me. Certainly we need to ask, have these been violated? But Congress's responsibility is actually bigger than just that. It is to provide oversight and to make sure that there's more transparency for future presidents so we understand how this happened and how can we prevent it from happening again.
Well, part of it is accountability through criminal charges if criminal charges are warranted, correct? Right? It's like a duh on that. Meanwhile, on Laura Ingrahm yesterday on Fox News, Byron Donalds was on and talked about yesterday was the last day that the aides were to schedule a meeting that would be transcribed with the House Oversight Committee, and if not, they will get subpoenaed to do it. Here's part of that segment on Fox News yesterday.
And Joan Shingang, I'm going to pronounce Shanga. I'm not sure I'm going to introduce you all the way. Of Putin's kleptocracy. Kleptocracy and the guys who are the kleptocracies.
I can't believe we were dealing with that for 4 years. But time's up now, though, right? For Biden's aides who helped hide his condition. The House Oversight Committee gave Joe Biden's doctor and 4 key staffers until today to schedule transcribed interviews on their roles in the cover-up of the president's condition. Well, if they don't do this, then deadline day could turn into subpoena day. Here to discuss is Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, member of the House Oversight Committee, Florida gubernatorial candidate. Congressman, so what has the committee actually heard from the doctor and these top Biden aides? Are interviews going to be scheduled?
We've not heard much from them yet, but I will tell you that these interviews are going to be scheduled. They can come in voluntarily and sit with the committee and answer key questions, or they could be subpoenaed. That's where this thing needs to go. You cannot have occur in our country what the Democrats let happen, and not just the Democrats, operatives, media personalities, all working together to cover up the fact that Joe Biden was not mentally capable, not mentally fit to run the country. And so they are going to come in and they're going to have to provide testimony to the Oversight Committee.
There's a deadline, though, Congressman.
For
right,
the
deadline. Right, I understand all that and agree with you 100%. But the deadline's a deadline. So are they going to get a subpoena?
As far as I'm concerned, that's what needs to happen. The subpoenas need to go out. Speaker Johnson, my chairman, Chairman Comer, if they don't respond, those subpoenas need to go out immediately.
Now, we all remember Biden's campaign in 2020, Congressman, the basement campaign. But if this is a cover-up, how far will the committee go? Will they go back that far before he was even elected, or is only relevant the exercise of presidential power?
I think what we would end up doing is going over the breadth of his presidency, because so many things are now being called into question. Did he even know about these pardons that they did on their way out the door? These preemptive pardons. Did he know? What did he know around what was happening on October 7th to our ally Israel? What did he actually know? What was he comprehending when it was the withdrawal of Afghanistan? What about the start of the Ukraine war where Russia invaded Ukraine? What was his mental fitness and capability? You got to understand, even during those times a couple of years ago, Joe Biden was not having a lot of meetings with people outside of the small bubble in the White House. So as far as I'm concerned, our investigation needs to cover every year of that presidency, because we have to get to the bottom of, was the president actually capable of doing his job?
You know, one of the things that we had talked about, and Eric and I think this would have been last week, we were like, whoa. And this was on the entire withdrawal from Afghanistan, and it relates to Biden saying that, you know, he was told there wasn't one general, one military leader that told him to stay in Afghanistan, and every single one of them told him to stay in Afghanistan and keep 2,500 troops in. And we know that because once they testified, no, this is what we told him. And so we always accuse the president of lying. And then after this came out, we went, whoa. Might he not remember the conversation? You know, was he actually on even on the withdrawal of Afghanistan? Was it Biden that actually did it, and did he fully understand what he was doing? Did somebody else make the decision for him? You think about it, because we talk about shadow government, but you talk about the commander-in-chief, the guy who can push the big red button. We all know what that is. Who would have made that decision at those times? I remember when Eric and I, when there was the United States went and they went after, I believe it was a Hezbollah-backed group in Iraq. I believe that's what it was. And it was quite complicated when you looked at it, you know, when you looked at the number of parties that were involved and everything else and why they did it. And I remember looking at Eric, and I said it on the air, and I said, my God, do you think that this president is talking about Biden, that he actually comprehends everything that's going on here, all the terrorist groups that are involved, the countries that are involved? We just had an attack. Was he involved in it at all? And so you look back at it, and you look at all the executive orders. You look at everything that happened. Now, I saw the other day that these aides are pulling in are low-level aides. And it's like, well, why are you going after the small people? And my first response was, I'm guessing they want to bring in, the doctor they're bringing in, but they're bringing in more low-level people because if they don't answer and they take the fifth, they are the ones who will get immunity from prosecution. You want to go all the way up the ladder in order to find out the people that were actually dealing with him day in and day out. And I don't know what happens when you get to the point. I mean, the Senate's going to hold a hearing. So the fireworks are going to start that day because what are the Democrats going to say? Is it going to be Trump, 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 Trump? Nobody's going to buy that. And there's going to be a lot of interest in these hearings because if you ever want a soap opera scandal, if you ever want, you think of, all the different shows that have been out there, over the years about government conspiracies. Oh my gosh, this one is real, and it happened, and we all knew about it, and we all talked about it. But it didn't get wide-range publicity outside of conservative media because the liberal media refused to cover it and said it was made up and a conspiracy, and the Democrats all backed the BS and pretended, well, this is a guy that could do backflips. The problem is, the problem with Biden is nobody can keep up with him. These people that are in their 20s, they just, they're doing everything they possibly can just to keep up with him because he is so alert and so well schooled on every single issue, and everybody knew that was just a load of horse manure. Anybody watching knew that. And so I'm not, I understand why Jake Tapper wrote the book. I believe part of it is to sit there and to say, well, they fooled us all. He's had to do semi-mea culpas on it, but you can see when he has to do it, his head is down. But the left isn't pleased at him. We talked about his ratings, lowest ratings that he's had on CNN since 2015, a decade. And he's written the book on one of the biggest scandals ever because Democrats don't want to hear it. Expect Democrats to try to deflect and say Trump this, Trump that, Trump this, Trump that, Trump this, Trump that, Trump this, Trump that. The public won't buy it. But they have no other recourse. There's nothing else they can do. But with the Senate Judiciary doing it, now I hope that every day you've got James Comer or someone else on the House Oversight Committee that is pounding on this and daily updates every single day. You want something like that. You can't lose on this. That's why you do it. You can't lose on it, and that's political. That's the political reason. The reason of substance is this can't happen again, and people that were involved in this have to be held accountable. But what happens if it gets right up to Jill Biden? Because when it comes down to it, Jill Biden is the one that allowed him to stay. It's the family that did it. How involved was the family? And boy, if that ever gets to that point where Hunter Biden and Jill Biden have to testify, all hell's going to break loose. If it hasn't already. I mean, it's like, with everything we've gone through, Gary, hell broke loose a long time ago. This is just the continuation of it. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but he returns with me for Sunday night, Monday morning show. Coming up following the top of the hour. All right, it's a Friday, so we got to get through all the audio cuts we haven't been able to get through on all the different issues out there and bring you some of the issues that might not have been, the top 2 or 3, but just of real interest. One has to do with California Democrats now are just, gas prices are going up, and now they're upset at the energy regulations that they created. Oh, gosh. Here we go again. Plus, we've got some great audio. Jake Tapper now calling out Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, and the media for targeting Trump. We'll get to that. And always got to have, and I couldn't stand him when he was doing when Stephen A. Smith would be talking about sports, especially when they would do predictions or what would be coming up in the upcoming game, the game of the week. What's going to be going on? Well, the score is going to be 21-17. No, it's going to be 27-14. What are you talking about? But I love the stuff he's doing on politics now. When he first got into it, I rolled my eyes, and now I find Stephen A. Smith is more right than he's been before. But to me, it's just really entertaining to watch him talk about Biden and Trump and just everything that's going on in politics today. So we'll get to that and a lot more. 866-90 Red Eye.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning show with me. And we'll have some fun, as we always do. Later on today, I'm heading to see Dad. I'm back there for 26 hours. That's it. Flying Friday night, back Saturday night. Going to see Dad. Looking at the temperature in Buffalo for Saturday. 56 as a high. And all I've heard this week, it's almost as if the left, it's like, okay, we gotta pivot back to our old standards. Let's not do race this week. Let's do climate change. And I've heard the climate change crap again. Oh, did you see? The hurricane season. Going to be horrible. Going to be bad. Going to be... It's like, oh, stop it. You're guessing. Remember a couple of years ago, they said it would be one of the worst ever, and it was one of the best ever. But I'm sure I'll go back to New York and dealing with temperatures in the upper 40s and lower 50s, and someone will say, well, the cold is because of global warming. You know that, right? Oh, man. All right, you ready for something here? Before we get to the audio cuts, are you ready for this one? I wish Eric was here for this. I really wish Eric was here for this. We'll repeat it. We'll bring it up again on Sunday night, Monday morning. You ready? These articles appeared over the last couple of days. Could Blue MAGA revitalize the Democratic Party? Can't make this up. As conversations about President Joe Biden's decline during his years as president continue, and as Democrats continue to struggle with public approval, lawmakers on the left are looking for ways to reconnect with American voters. Some Democrats view this time in the middle of the Trump era as an opportunity to revamp the party especially as they struggle to find a new leader. One of those Democrats is Representative Ro Khanna, a California Democrat whose district includes much of the Silicon Valley, but who wants his party to take a more populist route. He coined a new phrase to describe the voters he hopes to bring back to the Democratic Party, the working and middle-class voters who fled the party to vote for President Donald Trump. Blue MAGA. He appeared on Sunday on ABC News this week with a tough message. The Democratic Party needs to be honest. In light of what has come out, it is painfully obvious that President Joe Biden should never have run. The California representative argued that his party gave too much deference to party leaders, to the old guard, to the advisors, instead of being more independent. Well, that includes you. All the insanity he votes for. This is the beautiful thing. We got to change. You got to change. You're promoting the insanity, but Khanna thinks that he is an answer to the Democrats' identity problem that can help the party rebuild. For the longest time, he's called his vision progressive capitalism. Khanna now phrases it as an economic patriotism, or Blue MAGA. He's used several names, but it's all the same agenda: bring manufacturing back to America and better jobs for the working and middle-class Americans. He's gone on tours in MAGA-leaning districts since his first term. Then in 2022, he left California for a tour of 3 states, blah, 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 blah. We know the whole tour thing. They've been talking about that since Hillary lost in 2016. It means nothing. It's the same old BS over and over again. In the more recent tour, benefits over billionaires. Oh, God. He traveled to Republican-held battleground districts in California, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. His frequent travels have given rise to talk of presidential ambitions. He certainly seems to be setting himself up for a possible 2028 or 2032 run. In the meantime, this Democrat says he wants his party to pitch ideas that improve the lives of working-class Americans. We need a vision that helps blah, 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 blah. Khanna isn't the only one preaching Blue MAGA. His message also aligns with Bernie Sanders and AOC. Well, you've just lost. When you just say Bernie Sanders and AOC are Blue MAGA because they had the Fight Oligarchy tour, and that somehow relates to Trump and the Republican Party, oh, my God, are they lost. So there you go, and they go into this, and, you know, it was Roy Teixeira and Douglas Schoen who wrote articles about this time last year, it was. And they were talking about that the Democrats have to embrace the things that Trump believes. And they said, I forgot which one actually said they need to be more MAGA. And so when Harris was appointed by the Democrat establishment, first thing she came out with, what was the first thing she came out with? Donald Trump has failed us on the border, even though she was the vice president of the administration that purposely opened the border. But she ran the ad that was, she'll be tougher on the border. She'll get that wall built. I mean, it was bizarre. And then we started looking and we said, wow, she's trying to co-opt Trump. This isn't going to work for her. They're not going to buy it. And then she slowly moved away from that. The reason it won't work for Democrats is they don't believe it. It's not what Democrats want. They're as radical as you can get. They still embrace the radical transgender movement, the misogyny of it. end identity politics, which is judging people by groups and not individuals, which is racism. If they are going to change the party, they have to stop with the victim-oppressor narrative. They've got to stop with the racism of identity politics, and they have to stop with the insanity of the misogyny, the women hatred of the radical transgender movement. That's what they first have to do. They can't do that. They can't. It's impossible. It's not who they are. And so, you know, we'll see how this works out for them. As we have stated before, if the economy tanks over the next year, they could win the midterms based on economics. The House could. Does this mean, again, that they could hold on to it if hypothetically that happened with what they believe? We already know. You already hear it. If we take the House, we're going to impeach Trump. If we take the House, we're going to go after Elon Musk. So what's changed? The leaders of the Democratic Party right now are not Ro Khanna. The leaders of the Democratic Party right now are AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Bernie Sanders, people that are as far left and as far left radical as you can come. Ro Khanna will get publicity because he's talking about Blue MAGA, so those stories may get hits on X and on other social media, but everybody looks at it, it's more of a joke. Because now you see images of the blue MAGA hats that say Make America Great Again, but they're blue. You really think that that's the imagery? That's the imagery that Democrats are going to unite around now. Let's get a MAGA. Let's get a Make America Great Again blue hat, and then we'll show them. That's how we'll get men. Let's wear the hats. Can you imagine the debate with Democrats? All right, look now. We got the blue hats. We got the Make America Great blue hats again, which represent the new direction of the Democratic Party. Are we allowed to turn them backwards? That will be the next big issue. And then they'll be talking about the culture of wearing the hat backwards and whether you do it if you are a person of privilege, whether that is cultural appropriation or not. That will be the debate inside the Democratic Party. How to wear the blue MAGA hat. So, Ro Khanna is going to get a ton of hits, but I don't believe it's going to go anywhere. All I've seen in the Democratic Party is that they've gone more radical. That's it. One of the reasons I think when you look at Jake Tapper's numbers on CNN, the people that have left him, the reason he had the lowest ratings, everybody on the left, Democrats who watch it, are gone. They don't want to see this. Because they don't want to admit that they lied to the American people, and they were part of lying to the American people, and they bought into the lie of whatever, or they were enabling the lie. Look, if you're a Democrat voter, you knew Biden had cognitive problems. You were fine with enabling the lies. You were fine because you knew that Biden had massive cognitive problems, and you knew there was a possibility that he wasn't making all the decisions, and you were okay with it. When you reach that point where you're okay with it, when you reach that point where you're screaming, we need to save the democracy, and everything your party is doing is the opposite of it, and you're help enabling it, you're not a moderate. The last thing you're going to do is come around and say, you know something, now that they talk about it, We need to embrace. We need to be we need to be blue Hitler. That's what they should do, blue Hitler hats. Hitler was right. Blue Hitler hats. Oh my God. You're not supposed to laugh at your own jokes, but that popped into my mind, and that was funny. Because that's where Ro Khanna will get the hits, but it's not going to go anywhere. They did. Remember, this was done a year ago, and they tried it. Kamala Harris tried it. Nobody bought it. Nobody's going to buy that a congressperson or a member right now of the Democratic Party that has been as radical as possible. You may have sat there and spoke a few times outside of where you were supposed to, but you backed all the radical agenda. If you're a member of the Democratic Party and you embrace identity politics. You know it's wrong. You know it's racist, but you're okay with it. Even though it's a losing proposition, you're still okay with it. If you support the racism of anti-Semitism, which is exclusively, I'm not saying all Democrats support it, but it's exclusively in the Democratic Party. And if anybody that's associated with the Republican Party throws out that type of narrative, they're immediately rejected. Immediately rejected. And when you are part of the misogyny of the radical transgender movement, the women hatred, sorry, you're not going to change. Nobody's going to buy it. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
And we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. He's back with me on Sunday night, Monday morning. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, we'll get to the audio cuts because it gets so busy the last couple of months that by the time we get to Thursday, we're just totally overwhelmed with audio cuts. By the time we get to Friday, now we're even more overwhelmed and we want to get them in because a lot of them are really good and we'll have quick comments on them. But want to get this in. California Democrats, this is from the Daily Caller, California Democrats are railing against state regulators for economic conditions they helped unleash now that a possible gas price crisis looms. California's Committee on Utilities and Energy grilled several state regulators on Wednesday about a possible gas price spike as two major oil refineries in California prepare to close, according to a local news outlet. Despite their outrage, California Democrats have targeted the fossil fuel industry for years by creating a stringent regulatory climate, and energy companies, including their refining capacity, are withdrawing from the state, setting the table for potentially a massive 75% jump in gas prices. This is hilarious. We have a crisis on our hand that may have been self-created by the actions perhaps taken by the state, by regulators, said a Democratic Assemblyman, David Alvarez of San Diego, on Wednesday at the hearing. I know what climate leadership does not look like, and that is $10 a gallon gas. Another Democratic Assembly person told regulators at the hearing. So they passed the laws that raise the gas prices. Then they get on the regulators for doing what they wanted the regulators to do, which was raise gas prices. But when gas prices are raised and they get pushback, then they go after the regulators, not the people that actually created the law in the first place. California has the highest average per gallon gas price at the pump compared to any other state, according to AAA gas price data. Meanwhile, California regulators have suggested increasing state involvement in refinery management, including the all the refineries are leaving because of the regulations. And now, I'm not making this up. I'm going to read the entire thing again. California has the highest average per gallon gas price at the pump compared to any other state, according to AAA gas price data. Meanwhile, California regulators have suggested increasing state involvement in refinery management, including the possibility of de facto state-owned refineries. Oh, my gosh. The California legislature, of course, has granted regulatory agencies authority to establish stringent new rules for the oil and gas industry. So they did. They made them so strict and made the refineries unprofitable. So the refineries said, we're going to leave. And they're like, but gas prices are not going to skyrocket. Now we need to build some state-owned refineries. Oh, my God.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm here. He's not, but he will be Sunday night, Monday morning with me. Yeah, I just look at this story that the Daily Caller had. Democrats rail against energy regulations that they unleashed as the gas crisis looms. And it brings me back to the point that economics always matters. I don't care whether you're a liberal or whether you're a conservative. I don't care whether it's about regulation, tariffs, whatever. You can't defeat economics, and that's people care about their own self-interest, and they care about prices. Prices matter to people. Huge mistake that the Biden administration made. Huge mistake. All they thought was the economy is about people having jobs. It's not. And to not understand that, it is almost economic insanity. And we know that as inflation kept going up, and they kept saying, well, people just don't understand that they've got a job. Huh? They don't understand they have a job. Of course they know they have a job. And for us, it was easy. We explained it a long time ago. And we tried to help Democrats because we always try to help them, but thank God they never listen. But as we've always said, inflation, increased prices are always the worst thing. However they come about. Whether they come about through taxes, minimum wage, whatever. Inflation that comes from government spending, it's always a problem. And it's a huge problem. And it's a bigger problem a lot of times than a recession would be. Because in a recession, you might have 7 or 8% unemployment. But that means 90% of the people are working. And if you're in a recession, odds are people aren't buying as much and prices go down. Still, people are concerned with it because they see the bad economic news. They see the unemployment rate. They know somebody who is unemployed. It's still bad. I'm not saying it's good. It's still bad. But as we warned the Democrats back then to ignore inflation, you do that at your own peril, and they did. And it's one of the main reasons they lost. Prices matter, and inflation is even worse in a recession because it affects everybody. And Democrats just for some reason could not comprehend that a person that is working a job 40 hours a week and thinking to themselves, I have to get another part-time job because I'm working and I can't afford the basic things that I need for myself and my family, that isn't completely and can be a hopeless situation for people. Because if you're laid off, you're saying, at least I can get a job and I can do something, then I'll be able to afford the things that I need. If you're working a job, and even a job and a half, or even 2 jobs, and inflation is overwhelming you, that's hopelessness. How do you get out of that? And that's something that they never seem to understand at all. And here we go here. What's going on in California? Now they're all panicking. Democrats are panicking. You told the regulators, screw the oil companies. The oil companies are evil. The regulators believed you. And now you're saying, how dare the regulators enforce the law that we created? Because now gasoline's going up to $10 a gallon. And we go back to 2000, before that hit, before the mortgage crisis hit, that summer, I believe it would have been the summer of 2008. I think everything went to hell October of 2008. But in that summer, it was it that summer? It was that summer when gas prices went through the roof. Then they drastically came down when we got to October of that year. They drastically came down October, November, December of that year. But when they were really high, they did a survey, and the majority of people that called themselves progressives and liberal said low gas prices are more important than climate change. Well, of course they did. Because it's great to be a cause if you don't have to pay for it. And then they started doing the studies. Yes, I believe climate change is a severe problem. All right, would you spend $10 more a month in order to stop it? No. What, are you out of your mind? I'm against it, but somebody else should pay for it. And what is that? That's the reality of economics. And the same thing here. That's what they're dealing with in California, economics. We can't pay that kind of money for gasoline. $10 a gallon? That one Democratic assemblyman said, I know what climate leadership does not look like, and that's $10 a gallon for gas. That was your whole goal. The whole goal was to skyrocket fossil fuels, Obama said it. You voted for Obama back in 2008 because he said he would bankrupt the coal companies, that he would skyrocket electricity prices. Obama said it. You voted for him. For decades, liberals have been voting for high gasoline prices. Now they're getting it, and they're, can you believe we're getting, how do we get this? I can't believe it. To the point where the regulators have made it so the refineries are like, we're out. The oil companies, we're out. So now what are they talking about? Right here in the article. California has the highest average gasoline, per gallon gas price at the pump compared to any other state. Meanwhile, California regulators have suggested increasing state involvement in refinery management, including the possibility of state-owned refineries. The California legislature has granted regulatory agencies authority to establish stringent new rules for the oil and gas industry. In recent special legislative sessions, lawmakers backed Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom's efforts to create new storage and maintenance rules for refiners. According to the publication, Newsom has also called on regulators to do more to keep the refineries in the state, though he has allowed for the creation of stringent rules that produce a hostile environment for energy producers. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. What do they think will happen? What type of delusional state is their mind in where they say, okay, we want to make it easier for refineries to stay here and for gas prices to come down, even though our goal is to increase gas prices and get the fossil fuel industry out of California. Who's with me? And this is where we as conservatives look and say, what the hell's going on in your mind? How do you process these delusions? How do you actually think? I've always said there's part of me that would like a miracle to occur where I could say, God, could you put me, not for a long time, I don't know if I can handle it, but could you do a Vulcan mind meld? I just want to see, I just want to experience for a short time how they actually think. Mind meld me into a Gavin Newsom. Just for an hour. Just for an hour. I won't make any decisions. I won't influence the decisions on California. Just mind meld our minds together. Do it. Well, okay, I've got to take it all away then. Get Spock to do the mind meld between me and Jasmine Crockett, since she is my congressperson, by 3 blocks. Because the thing is, after that hour is over, would I go insane? Mind meld my mind into AOC's mind. Just so I can experience for an hour, so I can understand or not understand, completely panic, be absolutely the most afraid I've ever been in my life, that realizing that a human being can have a brain that thinks that way. What if I get stuck there? I can't get back. Oh, no. Gary, you're sharing Jasmine Crockett's mind forever. Forever and ever. It's like could I justify suicide then at that point? Would suicide be justifiable? You could play the MASH song, Suicide is Painless. Well, it's less pain than living in this brain. Phillips 66 and Valero both announced plans to close refineries in the state in 2024, and retiring facilities jointly account for roughly 20% of California's refining capacity. Refineries have been shutting down in California for years, and no new major oil refineries have come online in the state since 1969. So this is something that's been going on for well over a half a century. This is the best part of this article. The California Air Resources Board, the California Energy Commission, the Division of Petroleum Market Oversight, all the assembly people that were quoted in here, Valero, Phillips 66, California's Committee on Utilities and Energy, did not respond to the Daily Caller's request for comment. Wow. No. I'm sorry. I'm not going to mind meld with Joy Reid. I refuse to do that. Oh, what's the one? Oh, I can't think of her name. The one Democratic consultant that's just nuts. That's on CNN once in a while arguing with Scott Jennings. I can't think of her name. Oh, mind meld. Yeah, I may not want to do it, though. producer Ron, he talked in my head. He said, what if you can't come back? What if you're stuck there forever? I didn't think about that one. What if it all goes wrong? 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, we'll get to a bunch of audio coming up on the top of the hour. I promised you, and we're running out of time on the show for the week, and we got to clear the desk. So we'll clear the desk. We'll have the audio cuts that we've wanted to play. We'll have stories that may not have been in the top 5 stories that we think are just cool stories for you to know, and stories that you'd have a great interest on. Thanks so much to Terry, who sent me this as we were talking about the insanity of California. So much for the fair plan. James Woods roasts California government for raising gas tax as L.A. tries to rebuild from the fires. The only people who believe, this is from Twitchy.com, the only people who believed L.A. Mayor Karen Bass and California Governor Gavin Newsom when the pair said they'd make rebuilding after the L.A. wildfires easy were Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. We're not even sure they bought the BS that they were spewing, because everything they've done after the fires contradicts the definition of easy, and now they're making it even harder for people to rebuild by raising the gas tax, and James Woods has no patience for it. He writes, so our feckless grifter governor of California is raising the gas tax just as construction is beginning in the Palisades and elsewhere. This will grossly inflate the cost of rebuilding for people already being screwed by his fair plan. Wow. So there you go. Yeah. And they talk about, people moving, and it goes into a bunch of different other ex-posts of people saying, we're gone. This is it. We can't do it anymore. By the way, it was on the other day. I was going through the television channels, and the Rockford Files was on. It's one of the first Rockford Files from '74, and a very young James Woods. He was excellent. I mean, he was a weird kind of sort of evil character in that one, too. He plays them great. He really does.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has a morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning's show. All right, well, okay. This is the end of the week, and we sort of get loaded up with a ton of audio cuts, and we want to make sure we get the best ones in to you. This happened recently. I don't know if it was the last couple of days or whatever, but Scott Jennings from CNN was in Minnesota. And so the talk came up about, this had to be recent because they were talking about the Democrats' plan, the $20 million plan to try to find out how can we relate to men. And we've given you our opinion on it. If you're sitting down, if you've got to sit and have a meeting of how to relate to people, you're already lost. But Scott Jennings here is talking obviously to a Republican group in Minnesota, and brings up Tim Walz. And it's like, where Walz, remember he said he was the permission structure and he knows the code? And Scott Jennings just goes off on the whole code thing here. You ready? Here we go. This is Scott Jennings.
I could code talk to white guys watching football fixing their truck.
First of all, we don't speak in code. You know, we're not aliens. Second of all, I might recommend to the governor that if your first move at a political event is to go right to the jazz hands, maybe you're not speaking the correct language that you think you're speaking, perhaps a different dialect, but...
Keep it going. Why is it all? Could you get back to the... I've lost the audio here. Okay, let's do it again here.
Perhaps a different dialect, but this was maybe the dumbest analysis of the 2024 election I'd ever seen. I mean, we know why he was chosen, because she couldn't pick the correct choice because he was Jewish. Let's be honest. She should have picked the governor of Pennsylvania, and her party wouldn't let her do it. So she ends up picking this camouflage hat-wearing buffoon that comes from your state, who I am convinced actually cost her votes, but I am more than glad was on the ticket so that J.D. Vance could kick his ass at the debate.
Why do you think it is that Democrats have had such a hard time convincing men and young men in particular of their message lately, and conservatives have been much more successful at it through Trump?
It's very simple, because they care more about dudes who want to be women than dudes who just want to be dudes. That is the main reason.
The radical transgender movement, by the way, again, does not appeal to men at all. So, you look at it, that the only demographic that is still strong with the Democratic Party is white college-educated women. The only ones that they've held on to, which is amazing with the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. But as we know, by the way, this would be another thing that I'd like to have the Vulcan mind meld. Now, I have to be able to get out. I can't get stuck inside their minds. But the feminist who, for a half a century of feminism, and just out the door because the man says so, because the man gets to define what a woman is. Think about this. The feminists now are, we don't know what a woman is. We can't define what a woman is. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. What is a woman? We don't know. A woman is what you think you are. You know, to get into that, you think about it. Somebody, like when Gloria Steinem came out, that would have been a mind meld I wanted that day. Is she just BSing? Or does she really believe that men should compete against women? You know, where did this come again? And I'm talking about in athletics. Where in the world did this come from? How did they get to this point? Because that's one of the biggest mysteries ever. We knew it would happen. Because Eric and I said it over a decade ago. If the radical transgender movement continued, it would completely destroy feminism. Because if anybody can be a woman, if a man can be a woman, there is no feminism anymore. And we knew it. We were still in shock when it happened. And part of what put us in complete and total shock was how the dominoes it wasn't even hard. It's just like the dominoes were all lined up. You just took your little finger, gave it a little flick, and it just knocked all of it down. And women, the liberal women, just absolutely crumbled to what the man wanted. That is really one of the most amazing political things I've ever seen. Because of how long and the passion of feminism and liberal feminism over the last half century. And it just went away like that. Snap your finger, it's gone. We always remember when Trump was elected in 2017, the big women's march. And of course, they identified the woman by a body part. That's why they all wore the pink hats. It represented the vagina. Then the next year, 2018, this big fight, this civil war in feminism. You can't wear the vagina because women can have penises. What? And then I can still remember, well, that's old school feminism. We follow new school Well, the new school feminism ran right over the old school feminism. And the old school feminist went, okay, I guess you're right. A woman can have a penis, and a woman is defined by what a man dictates a woman is. We're okay with it. Yeah. That's the kind of thing I'd want a Vulcan mind meld at that moment to see, why they changed. Was it simply intimidation? How can you hold such a huge belief in feminism and the autonomy of women and the privacy to protect women and completely crumble in an extremely short time? What in the brain gets you there? Those are the things that fascinate me. All right, now let's continue with the audio cuts. Let's move on to Jake Tapper. This doesn't sound like the Jake Tapper of, I don't know, 2 months ago? We don't have to go back a long time. A lot has changed since he wrote the book. Here we go.
I look at the way I covered, the president, some of the trials of the president, I thought were, I think it is problematic when people run for prosecutor and promise to go after a specific politician. And both Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, and Alvin Bragg, the District Attorney of New York, both of them did that. And that, to me, is problematic because you're not saying this is the offense and we need to bring justice to this perpetrator. You're saying, I'm going to go after him. And I think that there was a degree to which that was tolerated by the media writ large. I mean, I did note it at the time, but and when Trump does the same thing, and he's the president, so it's also a different degree, people perceive it as more problematic.
Of course, he's got to throw in the other one. The Democrats are complete. You saw that in the rate. They completely rejected him for that. But the Democrats are doing the same thing now. You see it every day on X. We got to make sure we go after Elon Musk. We go after Elon Musk. We go after Trump. Jasmine Crockett has said it. On Trump, we impeach him. We get the House, we impeach him. They're already talking about it again. There's no change. No change at all. What was this other audio cut I had of it? Okay, somebody put together a clip of what Jake Tapper is saying now versus what Jake Tapper said back then. Here we go.
But some of the clips are just, they're deceptively edited. I'm not going to call them cheap fakes, but they are me saying what the Washington Post is accusing somebody of doing, and they edit out me citing the Washington Post. Or it's me interviewing Frank Foer about his book and making it sound as though I am saying what I am paraphrasing Frank Foer saying, and on and on. They're deceptive clips. And whatever, this is the world that we're in. So let's start with the questions that I have here for you. So you're able to peel back the curtain into very personal and private moments of the Biden presidency, including how Biden feels about the job. He's 80, the oldest man to ever to hold the job. In your book, you wrote, quote, his public persona reflected physical decline and times dulling of mental faculties that no pill or exercise regimen can resist. In private, he would occasionally admit to friends that he felt tired. Does he have the strength and stamina for re-election, do you think?
The question about aging, I've spent so much time talking to people this last week about aging, and everybody brings all of this personal experience to bear because we have parents and we have grandparents, and aging is not a singular experience. Everybody
different for everybody.
Everybody ages, and there's not a sell-by date for human beings.
Right.
They pass the point where they're no longer up to the job. I think Nikki Haley has talked about a mental acuity test for presidential candidates, and everything I've seen about Joe Biden, he would pass that test.
Right. He's sharp physically. I mean, mentally.
Yeah.
I think the question is physically, right?
Right.
More so.
Right. Well, and then how do we ask that question? So everybody slows down as they age, and he maybe doesn't have the stamina to do the type of public appearances he would have done when he was 70 or 60, but does that mean that he doesn't have the stamina to do the job? I mean, I don't think there's like a simple answer to these questions, and it's all very subjective at the end of the day.
Right. And that was when we got to the end of 2022, 2023. And he goes, this was on X. Once again, Jake Tapper is claiming that the clips of him previously defending Biden's mental fitness used in a recent supercut were deceptively edited to be taken out of context. Tapper specifically referenced the clip that we just played below, so they've included the entire segment so people can decide for themselves. Tapper claims that when he said the following quote, he was paraphrasing a book, not giving his opinion. He's sharp physically. I mean mentally. I think the question is physically, right? Well, he didn't. He said it. He didn't say it was the opinion of the book. He said it. He's sharp physically. I mean he's sharp mentally. Tapper said this in response to the author claiming that Biden would pass a cognitive test. Tapper just told Barry Weiss and her audience that this clip was taken completely out of context, and they say, watch for yourself. You'll see if Tapper's humility tour is really is real, or if he's just unrepentant and just trying to sell a book. Look, he's scrambling. When somebody effectively calls him out for what he did and what he's doing now, you can see he bows his head. If you hit him hard, he knows it. He knows it. But to be honest with you, it's important to point that out. But I think the most important points are that we're now having the debate. The debate now has been legitimized because Democrats really can't speak out about it. They really can't say anything about it. So not the actual debate, but the allegations now, because he has come out with them, and you don't have the sources. You don't have people inside the White House going, the former White House going to different reporters and saying all of this of Jake Tapper's writing is false. You don't see that. So Tapper's book has been extremely beneficial to the Republicans and to America, because now the investigation can legitimately begin. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous material shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric will return Sunday night, Monday morning with me. Playing audio cuts here. It's a Friday show, and so it's a ton of audio cuts we didn't get a chance to play. We want to make sure we do. This one was interesting. This is Harry Enton from CNN doing their polls. And he writes here, a lot of Americans agree with Trump. Higher education needs a kick in the rear end. Those with high confidence in higher education has collapsed 57% in 2015 to 36% now. 48% say higher education is on the wrong track. Also, a plurality of Americans and the GOP agree that colleges have a liberal bias. Here's part of that segment from Harry Enton on CNN.
I think going into this, I think a lot of Americans thought that higher ed needed a nice kick in the rear end. What am I talking about here? Well, why don't we take a look at high confidence in higher education? You go back a decade ago, 57% of Americans had high confidence in higher education. Look at where we are now. That number has plummeted as of last year, down to 36%. We're talking about a 36-point drop among Republicans specifically. Get this, 68% of Americans said that higher education was on the wrong track. So it's a question of whether or not people agree with Trump's tactics, but they definitely agree with him on the idea that there is a problem with higher ed overall.
One thing you've heard from President Trump and many Republican allies for quite some time is accusing colleges and universities across the country of not being a friendly place for conservatives, if you will. How do the American public feel?
Yeah, so, do colleges have a liberal bias? I think that's really the question here. And what we see in polling after polling after polling is that the plurality say yes. Overall, look at that, 45% of Americans overall agree with the idea that colleges have a liberal bias. Just 24% disagree with that idea. Look among Republicans. Hello, 67% of Republicans agree that colleges have a liberal bias. This is why Donald Trump is so emphatic and so wanting to take on this fight, because he knows that Republicans hate universities, hate the administrations, believe they have a liberal bias, and in fact, the plurality of Americans overall agree with the idea, agree with Donald Trump, that colleges are in fact a place where bias reigns.
On President Trump targeting international students, are you seeing an impact of this? I mean, obviously it's early on, but so far?
Yeah, there's definitely been an impact on it. What are we talking about? So, webpage views for university courses from potential students abroad, right? This is from study portals. Get this, it is down 50% from potential international students from January 5th to the end of April. So a lot of potential international students who might be saying, hey, in the past I might want to come to America, saying, no, at this particular point, maybe I'm going to look elsewhere. Maybe I'm going to look at the United Kingdom, for example, because in the United States, we don't feel welcome.
And we'll analyze some of this coming up here, because when they say liberal bias, what do they mean by that? What does that mean? To throw out liberal bias, what does it mean? And when it comes to the quality of the education and you use liberal bias, what does that actually mean? Are they saying that you believe that there should be a little bit more welfare versus a little less welfare? Or is it much bigger and much more immoral or more Dr. Evil than a fiscal liberal versus conservative matter? We'll get to that coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric will be back with me Sunday night, Monday morning. We'll have some fun. A lot of things to talk about, I'm sure, to catch up on. Not there's always stuff to talk about, but actually to catch up on. It's actually really neat if he's gone for a couple of days or I'm gone for a couple of days and we come back and it's like we haven't talked, but one of us has been on the air and talking the issues. It's always fun to get back on. It really is. We just played that audio from CNN and Harry Enton talking about that a lot of Americans agree with Trump that higher education deserves a kick in the rear end, as he said, that high confidence in higher education has collapsed. And, and then they went into the fact of, does America believe that, that they are, universities are liberal? Now, when you say universities overall, I mean, you're including a lot. Because there are some universities that aren't as liberal as other universities. But if you ask specifically about the Ivy League schools, it has to be more. But when you talk about liberal bias at the universities, what are we talking about? What are the main narratives that exist, for example, at many Ivy League colleges that are liberal? And how do they affect? Well, I mean, they can be liberal and still have great education Well, if your liberalism is the promoting the anti-Semitism, the racism of anti-Semitism, if you promote actively and behave in recruitment of students with identity politics and the racism of critical race theory and identity politics, if you promote the racism of anti-Semitism, the hatred of Jews, the hatred of women, the misogyny with the radical transgender movement, well, don't you think that sort of distorts anything positive that might come out? And shouldn't everything be questioned about your university? Because when they say a liberal bent, it's like, well, you know, are they teaching, for example, Keynesian economics versus Adam Smith, Milton Friedman capitalism? And are they focusing too much on Keynesian economics or whatever? That would be a part of it. I mean, if you're promoting that and just ignoring capitalism, yeah, because in economics, you don't ignore either. But if you look at the history, you know, if you look at socialism, capitalism, Keynesian economics, Adam Smith economics, whatever, and that's all should all be part of all economics course. I mean, I know it because in the economics courses that I've taken, most have been self-taught, research on your own. You need to understand what the different economic systems are of capitalism, communism, socialism. And then what's promoted even inside capitalism, which is, Keynesian economics, more government spending and government spending. It's a delusion that the government, part of Keynesian economics. And I forgot what it was specifically, which budget it was about or who was president. It's within the last 15 years. And it was like, the thing is, Keynesian economics works, which is government spending. We even see that in the GDP. But I remember they were trying to promote the fact that for every dollar in government spending, that you create $1.50 in economic wealth or economic activity. And my first response was, really? Well, then end capitalism today. If you can create $1.50 of economic activity, whatever that means, and or wealth through spending government dollars, I mean, that's a 50% return on everything. If that's your average, go full communist. Because capitalism sucks if that's the case. Because if you look at probably the average return of profit on an American company in the capitalist system, it would be, usually it's depending on what year it is, probably between 6 and 10%. That would be the profit margin. Or if you're talking about a 50% return on your investment from government spending, then damn, California, build those state-run refineries. Of course, it's complete BS when they were throwing that out at that time. But to have those debates and to have that's fine to have, but that's not what's really going on. That's really not that there won't be, for example, if you're promoting the fact that communism is a much better system, well, yeah, that would be radical liberalism and untrue. You'd be making that crap up. But what really is driving the impression of people is the racism of identity politics, the racism of critical race theory, the racism of hatred of Jews, in the anti-Semitism you see on campus, and the hatred of women, the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. Those are the things that are incredibly so radical and so hateful and so evil. You know, you could have the debate about how much we should give to welfare. And you can have the argument, well, I'm a conservative and I don't believe that the money is best spent through the federal government doing it, where somebody else says, yes, but they're the best people to raise the money because you've got to pay your taxes and therefore that money will be available all the time. You can have that argument and you can say that one position is right, but you wouldn't come out and say that both are evil based on the intent of the person that's doing it. It may be immoral because if it doesn't work, it's like when we had the debate one time from the gentleman who called the show, and Eric and I, the guy was saying, that convince me, and we started talking about what should be done in the private sector and how to have a better healthcare system in the private sector, which will always be better than the government. And at the end of the conversation, he agreed with Eric and myself. He agreed completely. He said, I agree with you. It's right. And he said, but nobody should make a profit. What are you talking about? He goes, nobody should make a profit at all. No company should make any profits on, and he meant the production of any drugs, the production of any equipment, the production of anything that goes into a hospital. Nobody should make a profit at all. That is evil, even if, his point was, it's evil if anybody makes a profit along that, that point of medicine, even if the eventual care you get is better. And our point back to him is, well, wait a minute. If you're saying it's evil, well, then aren't you evil for promoting a system that does not give better health care, which you readily admit, and you do it because you're against people making a legitimate profit on what they sell in the voluntary system of capitalism? And so there's degrees of talking about what's moral or immoral, evil versus not evil. But when you get to these things of anti-Semitism and identity, the racism of identity politics, the misogyny of the radical transgender movement that even many Democrats are looking at going, guys, this is outright evil. Stop it. That's how these colleges are being judged. Those are really the big three topics: the racism of anti-Semitism, the racism of identity politics and critical race theory, and the women hatred and the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. That appears these colleges don't want to budge at all on. So I think I would add that to what Harry Enton said. He's not wrong in how he viewed the opinions of Americans, but he didn't get to the heart of the issues. He used the label that they're viewed as liberal, that they have a liberal bias. Well, what specifically is that liberal bias which is making hundreds of millions of Americans say that's absolutely unacceptable? And it's important, I think, to have that context in all of it as you talk about higher education today. Already, I've seen some of the Ivy League schools, some of the commencement speeches and some of the students speaking, defending anti-Semitism still. It really is amazing how that has grabbed hold here in the United States. It really is. It's reprehensible. It's evil to ignore to ignore, for example, the mission of Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis and Islamic radicalism and try to make the case that a Western-run parliamentary democracy like Israel is worse than they are. is complete delusion. Completely as delusional as you can get. And as evil as you can get. But you only get to that point by ignoring the truth. And that's another part of the so-called liberal bias. Liberal bias, using that term, actually softens what the liberal message from these colleges is communicating with the American public. It softens it. You've got to go specifically and say, what's the liberal bias that's driving Americans nuts? It's pure evil. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He is Eric Harley. I'm here. He is not, but he returns with me for Sunday night, Monday morning show. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Why? Well, because our show ends in a little over an hour. And after our show ends, it becomes our podcast. That's right. We record the entire show, and then it becomes our podcast. So if for some reason you can only listen to a part of the show and want to listen to more, you have that opportunity. If for some reason you miss a show overnight, well, then you can listen anytime you want during the day. Also, if you can't for some reason listen to one of our great radio stations while the show is actually on the radio live, we also do, for whatever reason, that's our preferred way that you listen to the radio stations. But if you can't, well, then you can always stream on our Red Eye Radio app, because we stream the show while it's on all 5 hours. Coming up following the top of the hour, more of the audio cuts to end the week that we want to make sure we get everything in there. Plus, some other stories out there. Mayor Bowser flip-flops and moves to repeal the sanctuary city law. Yeah. Can you believe it? Wow. Just amazing. And the other one, the Supreme Court. This is interesting because of the whole tariff thing and conservative screaming that that judges need to be limited on their scope. Well, excuse me, not conservatives, Republicans. Conservatives aren't, but many Republicans are, and the administration is screaming to limit the judge's ability to stop what the president wishes to do. The Supreme Court just yesterday in another case limited judges' authority to block infrastructure project over environmental concerns. The justices handed down the lone decision Thursday morning, slightly reducing judicial authority at a time when the Trump administration is complaining about alleged judicial overreach. In this case, 7-county infrastructure coalition versus Eagle County relates to the National Environmental Policy Act and the requirement for environmental impact statements in infrastructure projects supported by the federal government. It does not allow the courts, under the guise of judicial review of agency compliance with environmental rules, to delay or block agency projects based on the environmental effects of other projects separate from the project at hand. And judges were doing it, and the Supreme Court said, nope, you can't. The case of the tariffs is going to the Supreme Court, in all likelihood. Will be interesting to see where that all ends up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.